Cool. So as I said, I've got very basic slides, so I won't bore you too much with slides. But, so welcome everyone. So I think we're starting our next chapter with No-Kills Colorado and Data Changemaker. So as you know, that project had two phases. We started with the data wrangling phase where we had a bunch of volunteers, team or individual, basically wrangling the data, cleaning the data and so on, adding more information to the data. So today's purpose is really to review those submissions and for them, and then starting also the Viz phase, which will be the next step. So again, thanks David to be our guest. We're super thrilled to be able to help you guys. An amazing charity and dedication from you guys. So in terms of agenda, the idea is so Chris has assessed the 7 submissions. So the idea was to invite the volunteers for the volunteers to basically showcase their work, their strategies, their technologies, and then get some feedback from the Data Changemaker team, but also from Davyd. And also explain you how we're going to launch the next phase, which will be the Viz phase, where now it's time to tell stories, basically, using the data that's been wrangled and cleaned up. So the way we work, maybe Chris, do you want to jump in? And because you were involved in that process a lot, so explain how many submissions we had, how you selected them, and that kind of stuff. Do you want to jump in and explain that process?
Yeah, sure, not a problem. So I think sort of going back a little bit, this project was, usually we just do data visualization projects. We needed to do a data wrangling project before this because David had identified that there's problems with the data. I can see Mike sort of nodding as well. Anyone who's had a look at this data is just like, it's good. It's just not clean enough to use, which was the feedback we went from the start, right? I think the initial thought was that we would have a small team of, we'd have a small number of volunteers, so maybe 5 or 10 volunteers. Adrian and I would split them into 2 groups. We'd go from there. We'd do a data wrangling phase to end up with roughly where we are today of a data source that everyone else could use for data visualization. Is that good or bad that we got almost 100 volunteers for our data wrangling? So really good in the worst possible way, because how do you have a team of 50? That's just impossible. So we quickly pivoted and said, look, create your own teams, form small teams, do whatever you want. Adrian and I were always there as we moved into more of a mentor role rather than a project manager role. And anyone could submit and we'll judge at the end. So everyone went away and did their own thing, and I'm just going to grab some notes from here as well. But in the end, we had 7 submissions. Yes, I thought it was 7. Just checking that I got my 7 right. Which was awesome, and I think the bad thing about that is it was maybe we left behind some people who wanted to use this as a learning exercise, but in a way we had to do that because we just didn't have the bandwidth to have a large team of 50. If anyone's done this sort of stuff before, there's logics where a team of 1 might be a little bit too small, but a team of 50 is actually far too big. You've got to have that right size team to actually get the work done. Or as most of our submissions were, is there a team of 1 anyway? Because probably like me, it was hard to find someone else in your time zone that could actually, you knew the person or they were in your time zone, or you could find them and you could work together, whatever. That's fine. I didn't make the submission list because I didn't get it done in time. And I think a lot of people might have been in that position as well. So of the 7 submissions that were received by last Friday, I looked through them all as in the sort of the submission criteria was a video. So we could just have a really quick intro about what your submission is, and a GitHub or at least a Google Drive that we could just have access to that had all the artifacts that you needed. So code, video, documentation, file. You tell us what's best for your project and what you've actually done. So over the last few days, look through all those videos. You know, in anything like this, scoring is really hard because in a way, you know, I know it's sort of the common thread at this day and age, but you know, everyone should win or everyone should get a trophy. But there also needs to be someone who wins. Like there's got to be a best solution out of all of the solutions. And I knew going into this, we'll probably blog about this later. I've written this up so we can use it as a blog. But the very first one was that I looked at was Mike. If I can come back to here, I'm sure. Oh, sorry, Nick. So Nick was a really good solution. I was very impressed that he used DLT and DBT and Python because I know a lot about DBT. I've never used DLT before. But from his point of view, and which is a really good solution, it's all open source software. It's really easy to use, etc. So I sort of had to rank him as, I don't know what the good score is, but if there's 6 other teams, they could be better or worse than that score. Yeah. So I went, this is pretty good. I'll give this a 7, and that just gives me a point to rank everything else above or below that. And then went through the process from there to say, you know, and is the next one better or worse than this? Is the next one better or worse than what I've actually got? So the scores might not be an accurate reflection of, oh, amazing, like no one got a 9 or a 10 out of 10, but they're relative to each other. In some are a little bit better, some are a little bit worse. In the end, the scores had a spread of 3. So one team got an 8, 3 teams got a 7, and 3 teams got a 6. And that's sort of how tight it was, as to it's really hard to split them. And on some of them, the split was in the videos, as people say, I didn't get it finished. Like, okay, so that's not a finished project. But when people say, I didn't get it finished, you could see it's like 95% done or 98% done. And I think what Fred mentioned before is, well, then work with those teams as well to say, hey, this is the feedback on what you've done so far. Do you want to, purely their choice, do you want to go away and work on that feedback and come back with something else, which might be the best thing that we've actually done? So leading into the Dataviz phase is there'll be a spreadsheet where you can actually get the data from to go and work on the Dataviz stuff. But the reason why we're putting it in a Google sheet is that we can actually refresh that data in the background and notify you when new data is available, because the data wrangling side of it has changed, the data's changed, the format is now, or the data quality has improved and it's now better and different. Is that what you wanted me to do then? Do you want me to go through anything else in detail, or we do that?
No, I think it's good.
Individual?
Yep. Yeah, we'll let the folks present their work, yep, and maybe you can give feedback at the end of the presentations. I think it's probably easier. So
yep,
who wants to jump in first? Nick, Steve, Michael? There's no order. Nicola, you want to go first and present? So
sure. Share
your screen, and it's like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Just explain us your approach, how you did it, and then we can give feedback, or Chris can give feedback, or people can ask questions, obviously. That's your
Great.
point.
Can everyone hear me okay? See the screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So drop a link in the chat as well, just to this repository. Start just by saying thanks. This was a really fun project, and I'm glad I get to share what I worked on. So I've got like 5 years experience as my title is like analytics engineer. It's mostly just data wrangling. So this was a good fit, and got to put some of those skills to the test. And I think my focus as I was working on this project was really like portability and infrastructure. So you'll probably hear that come back up. It informed a lot of my tooling choices and kind of how I tried to structure this. So I'm hoping, given that I was working solo, that the entire thing or pieces of this are easily portable, consolidated with other solutions, or built on top of. Like, tried to set up something that would be easy to collaborate and scale in the future, if that is a good path. So what you're looking at is the repository. It contains both the code to ingest and transform the data, format it, as well as the data itself in this data folder. Again, kind of pointing to the portability. It's all in the repo. It's a neat little package. And the tooling that I think, Chris, you mentioned at the top that I used is open source software, DLT and DBT. For ingestion, they're both just open source Python packages that make the transformation and ingestion step really declarative. So if you're familiar with a little bit of SQL, or can write a little bit of Python, it's pretty straightforward to pick up someone else's work or to kind of add to. And then the file format I used is DuckDB, so this is just very loose infrastructure. Google Sheets and the Colorado Marketplace API, DLT ingests, DBT transforms, and then DuckDB is, I think, the really cool tool here. It's a database file format, so you don't need any cloud infrastructure to have a relational database. You can query this. SQL friendly, which is where I always want to go. I find Python daunting at times. So, and you can have it, right in the repo. It lives right here. So I figured for my kind of demo, I would just show that a little bit as a method to kind of talk through what I've done. So let's just tab over to the repository here. So the DLT portion is 2 Python files, these 2 pipeline files. I won't go through the code at all, but that just ingests the data into the DuckDB, which lives here. And then all of the DBT transformations live in this DBT folder. There's kind of different layers. If you've used DBT before, this will be familiar. But the final output is these marts. And so the code, the SQL in these folders kind of transforms in memory this DuckDB, which we can just open up and take a look at. So if we look at, let's start with like the raw data. Whoops. So these are all the sheets we ingested, right? From Colorado Information Management, from Google Sheets, the active licenses, and then there's a couple layers of transformations, and at the end of the day, you get these 2 final outputs, which are the facilities and the yearly shelter statistics. And so that's what I'm just going to show quickly. So here's the output as a query, really simple join on the facility key. The grain of this table is a year, a facility, and then these 2 fields I just called category and type. There's probably a better naming convention, but you have dog, cat, or other. And then if it's a dog or a cat, you have the adult juvenile split. And then for other, you have the bird, mammal, reptile. You also have all your facility data here. So not perfect. There are some gaps, but geo information, Latin long, county, state, that can all be joined on at the end. And then what's been truncated here is all of the actual numbers. So I'll show those, and actually it might be easier to show those in the CSV format. So one of the nice things about DuckDB is it's really easy to move back and forth with a CSV. So in the repository, I've also provided these final 2 tables as CSVs if you don't want to deal with the overhead of being able to open the database. You can just download these and work from there. So let me tab over. So this is the shelter statistics as a CSV. And here are your kind of core outcome or your core count columns is, I guess, how I've thought about them. So you have start and end of year counts, you have your intake options, you have your outcomes, and then you have your end of year counts at the end. So I'm hopeful that this, and then your end of year, and this is consolidated for all years and all animal types, that's all been standardized. So you can just stack from 2015 all the way to 2024 on top of each other. And hopefully these are the building blocks for any kind of advanced measures or visualization kind of components that you would need. So that was my approach very briefly. I think, again, the focus was trying to make this modular, have a bunch of different kind of puzzle pieces that you could pick up or move around, knowing that given I was working solo and I wouldn't have time to kind of get to all of it. So hopefully something that could be, consolidated with another submission or iterated on was definitely part of my thinking. So.
I think that's awesome work. I'm sure Chris has a question, but my question quickly, maybe David and Sam. I mean, we're hoping that whatever solution we provide, we'll be able to provide some training to Davyd, so he can do it himself. But how easy would that be for Davyd to use that solution and just click a button and do it himself? Is that something when it's set up in the system, it's fairly easy?
Yeah, so that was definitely part of my thinking. I think there's maybe two pieces to that. There's a couple steps that I didn't go through the headache of, but are very doable, where you can just automate this with GitHub Actions. So you would kind of not need to touch anything unless you're adding a new data source. And then the second piece is like next year, adding 2025 data. The config is really easy once you've done it once or twice, but it's not as straightforward as dropping a URL, right? Like there's a couple touch points, but it's pretty easy to document that, and then it should be easy to add new data without too much trouble.
Cool. David, you have a question about as a user question?
I think it was a little bit like your question, because Nick, I haven't coded in 20 years, so I'm not not a smart man. So but I really love it. I coded enough that I understand what you did, which is really cool. What I am nervous about is next year's data, because that's what that's what I'm gonna want to continue that, and so I'll have to look further into it, but I'm excited about how you did it. What you have there today is great, and it's the future. It's okay. I'm gonna get data. Well, I won't get new data for another 10 months, so I have that long to learn if I got to figure it out.
Yeah, I think the upside of some of these tools is that you don't have to. They're kind of declarative. So instead of like having to write the code to figure out how to get it, you just kind of point it at a target and here's my source, here's my target. And so you're really more just configuring sources and destinations, and so that takes a lot of the kind of heavy lifting of the coding off. So like I bet once you've done it, it would get easy. But
yeah, and I imagine that the challenge, I don't want to go too long, I know we only have so much time, but I imagine the challenge was the fact that the headers changed almost every year, right? And that's what you had to do in order to take it in, is to say, oh, this year it meant X, this year it's Y, they're the same thing, bring them in. Because I may run into that again next year. We never know how they're going to release those Google Sheets. So that's my fear, is making sure that that's easy, because I'm assuming that's all you have to do in the configuration you're talking about, is make sure you're saying, hey, this header means this.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm sort of speaking out of terms here, but I'm talking from Frederick's behalf, from Nick's behalf, from my behalf, obviously. We don't do this and then just walk away and you're dumped in it next year.
Technical support.
So every submission we're just using normal industry stuff that 1 million people know in the world. But I would think we're all here to actually help next year. So if the worst thing happens and they just completely change the format, it's pretty easy for Nick to pick up his own work, or for Mike, or for Alex, or for anyone. It's also easy for us to sort of go, never seen this before, but we can pick it up as well. Like, we're not just going to drop and run and never talk to you again. If the worst thing happens next year, we'll be here to actually help as well.
Exactly.
Nick, I was surprised when you said, sorry.
No,
I was just surprised in all of Nick's thing. He goes, he said, Python is daunting at times. It's like, I thought it was awesome because, as I said, and I went into this without favorites. I don't know anybody, right? So I'm not trying to pick favorites or anything. It was more just everyone's on an even playing field. I didn't really care. Like if I was building it, I'd use Python, and I was using Python on my submission that didn't get finished in time. But it's nice to see Python. It was nice to see DBT because I use DBT every day. I've never used DLT, and when I looked through the code quickly, I went, it's just so slick and easy. So from David's side, if the worst happens next year, it's a well-known package. A lot of people use it. It's simple to pick up and use and blah, blah, blah. Not just on Nick's, I think on everyone's as well. But yeah, did it work against Nick in the scoring? No, it didn't. But as I said, I gave him a 7 because I didn't know how many, every other submission could have been better. So I can't score him a 9 because then I've got nowhere to go. I've got to score him a sort of a good score. So I've actually got room above and below as we go through. But yeah, it was good. The presentation was good. The GitHub repo is well laid out. The code looks like it all works. The data was in a good format as well. One thing I didn't say at the start was after the submissions had finished and before I started the judging. So no one knew I was going to do this, but it was more just the my experience on looking at the data beforehand. Is I invented 4 questions that I wanted to get the answer to by using the data that came in the submission, right? So no one knew what those questions were because I just made them up on the spot basically to go through. And Nick got all those questions right, and it was quite easy to look through the data and say, okay, I need to do that as well. Sorry, didn't phrase that properly. I had my questions, I used his data, I got the answers really easily. So, good solid submission to start with. As Nick said, easy to just sort of move. It's all Python, DuckDB. It's easy to move anywhere. And future maintenance should be fairly simple as well. Good work. Good. Awesome.
Thanks again, Nick.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Moving on, Steve, do you want to chat next?
Sure.
Hey, Steve.
I'm happy to go. I've got a short presentation here. Let me get that started. Sorry, technical difficulties. Let's try it this way. All right.
Yep.
You see it?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I took a no-code approach, and on the second slide, I'll talk about the technical overview. But from a data perspective, and looking at the data, it made sense that we need to separate the facility data from the operational data, thinking of future analysis steps. And then further, I divided the operational data by inventory and metrics because those are very, very different values, and it made sense to house them in their own tables. So ultimately, I ended up with 4 files. So there's a file that contains facility data. There's a file that I used for mapping of facility names, because not only did column headers like to change, but facility names like to change as well. And so the facility mapping contains a list of the from and the to in the data to consolidate the assorted names for the same facility. And then, as I said, within the operational data, I've got inventory and metrics separated. I enrich the data by adding an indicator as to whether that facility has an active license based on what was available out there on the website. There are a lot of there are a lot of gaps in the data in regards to which facilities a license number was available for. And as Nick said, also related to the latitude and longitude information for the facilities. I also, in an effort to simplify the analysis for the metrics data, I added just a simple directional indicator, whether that metric is increasing inventory or reducing inventory. And then I parsed the data out as far as I thought it made sense. So animals, we got the dogs and the cats and the rabbits and so on. And then the metric, it was a stray or it was an adoption, it was a euthanasia. So as you can see on the right side, I've got 10 years of data. The 2023 was used as a template in hopes that the 2024 will follow the same layout. There's a fifth file now in listening to the discussion related to Nick's data that I didn't include, and that is there's a mapping table that assisted with the historical consolidation of the data, accommodating for the column changes. So in thinking of the next year of data, if it's different, then that mapping file would need to be used. And so I'll go back and add that into the Google Docs. On the name mapping, I used the fuzzy matching logic with a high confidence level, but that manual, this facility name mapping takes precedence over the fuzzy matching, and then did a lot of review of the data after those steps. So from a technical perspective, I used essentially Power BI and Excel. So I downloaded the files as they were, some modification to the column headers based on my mapping tables to get it to the point where Power Query would recognize the same column across all the different years worth of data. So I'm using free licenses, and so there should be no cost associated with replicating this approach. And you can see I've got some process steps in here. One of the elements that I think is going to be a key, and Frederick alluded to it in the opening remarks, my data is narrow. So I think it's going to be really important for the analysis going forward that the data has been unpivoted. And in my experience, that makes it easier to use in the analytical approach. So, you end up with a metrics table. I think it's got 75,000 records in it, something like that, because it has been unpivoted. So part of my data quality review, you can see the trend lines on the right, just trying to get a sense for, does the data smell right after being ingested? This that looks like big change is not big change because the y-axis does not go to 0. And then on the left, I've got a concept of a model that I've been using within Power BI to work with the data. So the data certainly was not clean, as was noted at the outset, but one way it's not clean that hasn't been mentioned yet is that in 11% of the cases, the ending inventory does not equal the starting inventory of the next period. And that gives me pause because that indicates low quality data collection or data review. And so as we get into analysis, we may want to exclude those cases where the ending does not equal the starting. You may want to be able to categorize them as low quality. Thankfully, it's only 11%, but I just raised that for consideration. And there are further opportunities within the data that I prepared. For instance, there's some 600 or so unique facilities in that 10-year period. There are still 146 that don't have coordinates. And someone with some local knowledge may be able to do a better job of finding what appear to be separate facilities that are actually the same facility, and improve that consolidation. So I've got a variety of appendices here, but really those probably exist only to answer what questions that exist.
Thanks, Steve. David, any general comments or questions, queries?
I have one comment, and it's not just for Steve. I wonder if anyone noticed that we do have 2024 data on that same webpage. It's not in the list on the right, it's on the left because it's this year's. So just in case anyone didn't grab that, it is there. So there was something he did. The 11% is interesting. So just to be clear, these are self-reported numbers, right? Each shelter or rescue self-reports to the state, and the state just accepts what they give them, and they don't validate it, which is one of the reasons I was actually really interested in this project, because we can help the state think about these things going forward. So I really love that you found that 11%, Steve. I don't think it throws off everything like wildly. 11, you're talking about 11% of the organizations don't match, but they probably don't match by hundreds. It's probably single digits or something, I would assume.
Yeah, I didn't look at the magnitude.
Yeah, because I would imagine it's the magnitude is low on that, but 11% is a valid thing to think about going forward. So thank you a lot, Steve. This was great.
You're welcome.
Good. Chris, general comment? But
yeah. And I even think on that, the 11% was more that the opening is not the same as the previous close. So those numbers should be identical, and they're not. The easy way out of it is, which one do you want to use? Do you want to, hand on heart, always the closing or always the opening? Both should be the same, but what do you do? Or do you just average the result or something as well? So yeah, for Steve, as I put in my comments as well, but I've never used Power Query before. I've never seen it, but that's not a negative at all. It was actually interesting to see what that does, and again, how you would use that to do that sort of thing. The facility mapping was great because from memory, no one else actually commented, or definitely no one commented about a facility mapping. Everyone's seen the quality with the data. On quite a few submissions, we've got the facility there a few different times with a few different names, but on Steve's, it's all standardized as to one name because that mapping file is there. And again, we've said this a few times. There'll be parts of different projects that actually make the final solution, and I think that mapping file is one of them as well, for sure. And as I said, great analysis on the data as well, because you were the only person to comment on that data quality piece and exactly what was what was correct and incorrect with that. As far as the 4 questions were concerned, you got all those right. It was, again, the file was easy to use. I could just go through the questions, get those answers easily. So I gave you a score of 7 as well, so exactly the same as Nick, because the approach was completely different. It was better in a few places, it was worse in a few places. It was really hard to split the two. So I just went exactly the same score.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I should have started with, like Nick, I enjoyed this. So I appreciate the opportunity to, provide, share some of my experience and hope to create some good out of it.
Thanks, amazing, Steve. So, something I didn't mention is when people submit their work, we ask how many hours they spend, and overall people have spent 280 hours or 260 hours. So an average of 30 hours kind of per submissions, which is a lot of hours that you guys have donated to Davyd, so that's really awesome. Mike, you want to, because obviously you're the team captain, I guess.
I don't know if I'm team captain. I'm the one that gets the talking stick the most often. Oh, apparently I have to open my system settings to share. So give me 1 second. We're going to do the technical difficulties thing here. All right. Zoom says it's on. Oh, it's because I'm in Chrome. 1 second. Oh, it wants me to quit. I'm going to have to bounce out of the call and bounce back in. So if you guys want to start that recording, I can be back by the time it's done. How about that?
Sounds good. So I'm gonna share my screen and show Alex's. It's only 4 minutes.
Yep.
Let me share my screen. I'll play the recording. I hope it's gonna work. It's always a bit interesting to play video from Zoom. Let me share my screen and see what happens. So let me know if you can hear the video. Can you hear? Did you hear
Nothing
the video?
so far.
No,
Nothing.
we can't
No.
hear Frederick.
No, can't.
If
So I
this-
think there's the sharing
but
trick.
on her original submission, there's a little gap at the start. So can you hear it in those 4 seconds?
No, I think because she's redone the video. So I know there's a.
Yeah, can't hear that at all.
There might be a trick with sharing video. Hang on. Because I know in Zoom before
Are you
used to have
using headphones? You're not using headphones, are you?
Yeah, but the audio should come through, should it?
Not when you're using headphones. It almost never does because it just goes there for some reason.
Hang on, share sound. I found it. I found where it is. There's a share sound
Okay.
option. So now can you?
To a unified
Yeah.
standard.
We can hear it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Perfect. So I'll go back to the beginning, put full screen, and then I'll let Alex talk.
Hi, today I will walk you through the core of my solution, which is designed to take raw data and make it clean and ready for analysis and visualization. The first step was to clean the data and bring it to a unified standard. The data from 2020 through 2024 had an issue with duplicate columns. For example, one column has the name other and the second has other.1. To fix this, I developed two core functions. First function automatically finds, merges, and validates all column duplication. It combines duplicate values into a single column. And it also validates the process by comparing sums to confirm no data was lost or, incorrectly calculated. The second function finishes the standardization. It adds the year and standardizes all column names. It ensures the names of the animal shelters are consistent. If the data from 2025 will have the same data structure, all you need to do is to call these two functions and the data is immediately ready. The older datasets used different column names. I manually standardize these files first, which allowed me to merge all data from 2016 to 2024 into a single file. My most challenging task was eliminating hidden duplicate organizations. The same shelter often appeared under different names over the years. So, I tackled this in two stages. First, I wrote a function that acts like a superhero, cleaner, fixing typos and enforcing consistent capitalization. After the automatic cleaning, I manually reviewed the remaining names. This effort resulted in a major reduction in the number of unique facility names, almost by half, which confirms the accuracy of the final dataset. Finally, I enriched the data. I added zip codes and organization types. shelter, rescue, etc. One of the requirements for this project was scraping email addresses. However, the main difficulty was that organizations in the database didn't have a website, which is where the scraping needed to begin. To address this, I designed a two-stage solution. First, using the DuckDuckGo search engine, the script tried to find the relevant website using the organization's name. And second, after that, the script navigated to Contact Us, About Us, or similar pages to extract the email addresses. This solution gives us a table with the organization's name, its website, and a potential email. Unfortunately, the relevance of websites and emails still has to be checked manually. One useful, I hope, thing I added is a way for the code to connect directly to Google Sheets. I use a Google Colab notebook to host the script that automatically updates the Google Sheets, bypassing the need for manual copy-pasting. So I hope that this solution will make future analysis, reporting, and of course visualization much simpler. Thank you for your attention.
Awesome. I really like the superhero comment. What did you call it? Superhero cleanup. Chris?
Yeah, it's like it was automated, but then it was manual after that to check if the automated thing worked or not properly. Like when I first read through that code, and I went, "Oh no, everything's hard coded. Like it's going to be hard to maintain in the future." And then you go, "No, there was a little bit of hard coding at the end to clean up what the automatic stuff didn't do as it went through."
Yeah. Davyd, a general comment from you for Alex? I know she's going to play that back.
Everything looked good. The only thing when she was talking about the other column, it's interesting. That other column, one is intake, one is outcome. And so I'm not sure if she merged those or not. I couldn't quite understand. If she did, that's going to mess up some of the data. They are different. One is because when you take in a stray or you take in a transfer, and then there's other, which I won't get into all the others, but that's going to be. And then outcome is they were adopted, they were euthanized. Other, again, it's like this catch-all. So there's one that's intake, one that's outcome. So even though they're both called other, they're literally the opposite of each other. So
we can check
and she that I may not have understood what she did with them. I'm afraid that she thought they were one thing.
Yeah,
they were just repeated.
Actually, I've got the answer for that right now because so again, going back on that, the 4 questions that I asked was, and I just made up the questions on the spot and applied those questions to every different submission. But I'd caught the other. I didn't catch what you just said, is that there's another intake and another outtake. Sorry, intake and outgoing, or whatever it is. A lot of other teams did that. So I'd sort of noticed in the spreadsheet there's 2 others. I was trying to see who combined them or not. So just some background on Alex before I sort of answer that, sorry. Awesome that it's an international submission. So she's in Poland. For us, all on this call, I think the sun is in the sky at the moment. We're all basically US or Aussie based. So it's daylight hours for us. It's midnight right now for Alex, which is why she can't be here. So that's great. She did have the 2024 data in there as well, another plus. And she spent 25 hours on this, so slightly more than what the 2 submissions so far had. But coming back to the other, she only got 2 questions right. The questions that she got wrong, so when I'm doing this, I'm meaning 1 and 4 she got wrong, questions 2 and 3 she got right. But the 1 and 4 were to do with the other, and she got one of the other columns, sorry, I should say on camera, one of the other columns, but not the second other column, right? So I could see that in her data. My comment was also on this. So my comment was something about but the overall approach seems a lot more robust and has a lot more functionality. I think correcting the questions would not take much effort at all. Now, Fred and I went back to Alex on, well, it's Friday for me. So we went back to her on about Tuesday or Wednesday, and she's fixed things already in the 2 days that we'd actually given her feedback. So now I'm pretty sure, I haven't checked, but she changed all the code last night or the night before.
Yeah, she did.
And I would imagine those things are fixed already, because she redid the video for today. She's done a few things. It just sort of proves that, you know, on all these submissions, not just Alex's, but on all of these, the people know what they're doing, right? So it's fairly easy to make changes as you go, to fix things and make them work.
I do want to point out that it was really cool that she programmatically looked for how to find contact information. That was something I mentioned, and I didn't think anyone would actually get around to that. That was awesome. I was really excited about it, because I've done that manually myself for 300 organizations in a year, and I do have a full-time job. It's hard to actually do that stuff, but we don't have much time left, and I want to make sure we.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Cool. So you good, Chris?
But anyway, so as I said, yeah, I scored her an 8 because it was just slightly better than the other two, just that little bit. Anyway.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Mike, you ready?
All right, I should be good to go. Let's see if it throws a fit this time. Okay, select window for sharing. What does that mean?
And Dave, you got a hard stop, have you? As well, you need to leave as soon as possible.
No, I'll be okay if we go a little over.
Okay.
Are you guys currently seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Cool. In that case, you should be seeing Slack right now.
Yeah, Quinn.
Yep.
Cool. I want to acknowledge my team members. All these folks showed up. They all wanted some team to join, so we just kind of gave them a home. They all put in work. So I at least want to make sure I'm the person talking, but everybody on here put in work, and I would argue some of them put in more work than I did. So I want to at least acknowledge these folks. All right, our submission. So we have three key files. The facility data is mostly the same as what you pull it off of the Colorado website. We added longitude and latitude, where the location does not have a physical location. We gave it a digital flag and use the location of the zip code. So this would be, of course, for future analysis. This does not go back historically. So obviously there's the issue of we have the current licensed facilities. In some of the old files, we have zip codes. This does not pull that in. We've had some other unfinished work that does have that pulled in, but it's not in this final package. And then we've got the statistics files. There's two versions of it. One of them is just, and I will explain why we have these two different versions. So one version is the XLSX version. It's got every tab for 2009 through 2024. David, I think you put some studies in chat. So some of the folks went out and got those and pulled them in. The only change we've made to these, so you'll notice they have slightly different columns depending on which one you click on, because there were different amounts of data in the different years. The only change we did is we unpivoted it, as Nick said at the very beginning. That's just kind of necessary. So we left what's in there so that people could do the maximum depth of analysis they want to year by year, if they want to. So this exists for someone that wanted to try to do that in this next phase of visualization. But to try to have one single coherent data set, we also created the CSV, which will show up here. So this is, sorry, that's the XLSX again. That's the CSV. So this is the least common denominator of your data. So as everybody has mentioned, and you know, the column headers change, those kinds of things all happen, but there's kind of a core piece of data that exists, which is what year is it? The other column, which is called beginning or context here, the name of the facility and what animal it is and what happens with that animal. So we've got like beginning inventories, and then we've got confiscated, that kind of thing. So it's all pivoted down. So this would be, we kind of presented these two different versions, because if you want to do longitudinal study, if you want to know what happened over the last, 13 or whatever years, this would be the place to go. But it's unenriched. Of course, you can point the PACFA current licenses at it, but as everybody's already pointed out, good luck. It's kind of hit or miss on whether you're going to have many matches. But those are the two files that we had to present in terms of complete work. And then I am also an analytics engineer, so I had the exact same thoughts as Nick when I started this, of like, hey, I want to create that vision for the future. I'm less concerned about putting these files together. I'm more concerned about 2025's file. But I was on vacation and I ended up kind of playing more of a project manager role. So we have a couple Python files here that kind of start that process. But as I mentioned in my preparation video, this is not ready to go. I would say the solutions other people have created are amazing, and I love them, and they're better than the work I have in front of you. But I would also say no matter what happens in 2025, somebody's going to have to assist. The files change enough that somebody will have to be there to assist. But this was kind of the beginning of it. So this history PY file is just standard old Python. We don't need to go through it. But the gist of it is it takes the existing format, unpivots it, cleans it up a little bit, throws it in those columns. This is how you get to that shape you saw earlier. And then utilities just supports it. And then the person who added all of the longitude, latitude data provided their notebook. So that's what we've got saved here. So those are the handful of files we have. It's a lot of the same material, of course, that you've heard. Let's see, how do I turn off screen sharing? There we go. It's a lot of the same material you've heard so far. I included a couple notes. Some of the things that I think, the names change year over year. That's a problem. I noticed looking at other people's submissions as they were scrolling quickly, we all had trouble with the amphibians and reptiles because of the spaces in it. So I'm in that camp with all the rest of you. And also there's no referential integrity within the year. And I don't know if that's a thing that like David can talk to the state going forward, but it would be nice if people submitted under the name that they are licensed under. But I'm sure that's been a thing you've been dealing with for years. So that's what I've got. Feel free to hit me with questions.
Thanks, Mike. You guys have spent 80 hours as well on the submission, so record a lot of hours.
Yeah, we ended up kind of multi-threading.
David, general feedback or questions, comment?
Yeah, I'm really interested in the two files. I think I understand what you're saying, because I think in the beginning they didn't even have like adult dogs and juvenile dogs. They just had dogs, right? So we couldn't really have that in a longitudinal every year thing to look at puppies, because there were no puppies.
And that part isn't so bad. So that part we were able to do because we could still split apart. Even if they didn't have adult dogs and juvenile dogs, they had dogs that were adopted dogs that were fostered. So that part was fine. But in some of the years, they included the license ID. In some of the years, they included the zip code. In some of the years, they didn't.
Yeah, and it was confusing. So that is interesting, that two file thing and where that goes. And I got to tell you, this was great, Mike. I'm going to say something about everybody right now, because I know this is weird because this is about data, but I'm a little teary-eyed right now because this is the most amazing data I have seen. I've been working with this data on an annual basis, but very siloed on the annual basis. And this was so important. And to see that everyone actually figured out some way to actually make this valuable is just, it really is. I'm a little teared up.
Glad to hear, David. Glad we can help. Chris, you have a technical assessment?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't looking at the clock before. But again, awesome submission. 80 hours spent across what was it, 5 or 6 people in the team. Again, latitude, longitude, digital flag, the file format split. All the questions were right. The field names needed a little bit of work, but again, we know that there's problems with that as well. It would be a 5-second fix to do that. I'm not worried about that at all. So again, sorry, a score of 7, which puts you the same as Nick and Stephen, just 1 behind Alex.
Awesome. I can spend 5, unless there's a question, I can spend a couple of minutes talking about the Viz stage. Because it's quite simple now, we've got the amazing data, but I can share my screen and show you a couple of things. But yeah, as Chris explained, the data doesn't stop there. There'll be a refinement. Chris is going to send more feedback. Alex might just fix a data as well. So Chris created a Google Sheet with David. So I'll show you where it is. And then moving forward, you can start the Viz process, and we'll talk to the team about the data systems, and we'll be there in 12 months' time, David. Don't worry. We'll give you a hand if you stop. So let's just quickly sharing my screen.
And Hisa just commented in there, it's not about losing. Hisa had a submission as well. Awesome submission, just a little bit different to everyone else's. But again, I've got some great feedback for you, Hisa, and I still think your solution was good as well.
Can you see my screen on the project page?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, the idea I just want to make sure that you know where to find the information. So obviously, if you go on our DataSet project page, if you scroll down, there's obviously background information about the project, no kills, Colorado, objective, and so on. But the critical bit for this project is the data. So there's a Google Sheet that was created that contains the 4 submissions, and that data will be updated and will notify you on Slack. So that the access data is basically that Google Sheet that Chris had just updated, and we add more to it when I guess the submissions are progressing, if there's more updates and so on. So the data is there, so you can use whatever data you feel like. I think that's probably the idea. And something that I also wanted maybe Dave to talk a minute about is Dave's created an amazing brief document, which is that file there. Those are basically some of the questions Dave wants answers from the dataset. So that's, as a guide, that would be awesome as an analyst. So if you read that doc, which is more like a brief document, it explains what type of answers Davyd is looking for from the data. So what I wanted to mention is something we want to test this project is we know sometimes folks don't have time to do the full project that could, you know, use 20, 30 hours, but we can also test just visualizing one question and one insight. We call that impact snapshot. Basically, you create a single chart or single visual or single answer or question. So you got a choice to do the full dashboard, the full story if you got time, but also you can do one single insight, which I think would be a nice option as well. Davyd, do you want to talk about the guides? Because I think that's all I wanted to show. Obviously, people can submit, but we can talk about later. But I know we're almost at time. So do you want to maybe close off and then explain the insight and what you try to get at?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I should bring it up, make it easier there. Can you see that?
No, we say it, yeah. It's going.
Okay. Yeah, and I put this together just to kind of have, you know, some key comparisons that we think about. I frankly wouldn't limit anyone to this. If they see I would love someone to challenge what we see and that they give me a data insight that I don't have today, right? But, you know, transfers versus negative outcomes are something that I'm really fascinated about over the years. I think I've talked about this on Slack and in our original meeting. We transfer from out of state and we should help our neighbors. Absolutely. We transfer tens of thousands, as many as 50,000 in a single year. I don't remember what year it is. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. But pets are still dying inside our shelter system here. And does the change in transfers every year change with that euthanasia number, right? Because is there a parallel, or maybe there's not, and both of those numbers would be interesting in different ways because these all help us. And I did try to put a why it matters with each one of these. Adoption trends, of course, matters. They're a basic one. Return to owner is when a stray dog comes in. A shelter takes in stray dogs. Like a good number of years ago was like 25% of dogs get back to their owners, right? Now, you know, you're looking for 60, 70, 80% with microchipping and stuff. This should have increased on a percentage basis over the years. Is it working? It gives us data about microchips work. This is actually happening, or shelters are changing their policies. So I won't go through each one of these, but that's what I put here to kind of give you what I think we should be looking for and why we think it matters for each one of those. And as I said, I'd be very interested in someone saying, you know what I did see from this data, which you never noticed. Let's see it. That would be great.
Well, thanks, Davyd. So I guess the next step, we've got few weeks to do the data storing part. We'll catch up end of October, early November, where this time the people that have done the visualizations would showcase their work. Maybe we select 4 or 5 volunteers. We do the same, but this time we showcase the work through storytelling. Thanks everyone for joining. Big thanks to Chris, master judge. I think Chris, you spent a lot of time reviewing, guiding the technical aspect. So I think it's amazing that you did all much work for us as well. Thanks a lot.
I can't thank everybody enough. I really did tear up a little bit by the time Mike, it was your fault. I don't know what you said, but it all came to me all of a sudden that, oh my God, look at the work these people did. You're all fantastic. That's all I could say.
It's recorded, David, so we can use that as a quote.
Oh, absolutely. Mike has a way with words, right, Mike? And thank you, David. I think I got teary-eyed. I got teary-eyed listening to you getting teary-eyed. So yeah.
we're crying about data. There's no crying in data. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody.
So we catch up late October. So check chat. Slack is the best way to get in touch. Ask feedback, ask questions. Chris will be on Slack as well, reviewing some of the data stuff. We can help you. But yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks David for the guidance as well. Amazing.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks for your time.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.